So tonight, I'm so blessed to introduce my friend, MerryLynn Gerstenschlager. This is her second time to come and speak to us, but she is the National Security Issues Chairman for the National Eagle Forum organization. And as you know, I hope you know, this is a national organization. We're under that umbrella. Then we're under state, the Texas Eagle Forum. We're a chapter of that group. And then we're a chapter of the County Eagle Forum. And we've been operating since 2008. But it's very interesting to me to realize that MerryLynn, who is also a volunteer all of these years, she's done all of her work on her own, paid her own dime. And she's been a political activist since 1993. And that was just about the time that I kicked in too. And she kicked in because of the education issue. And so did I. There were some things that, there were things that we didn't like. You know, the liberals were pushing hard against the conservatives. But you start messing with my kids, and I am going to be involved. And so I got involved. Not on my watch were they going to teach sex education that they had lined up, and I think that's what MerryLynn probably got involved too. But enough is enough, folks. You mess with my kids. So, and really, quite frankly, the subject tonight is very, very important because we're told in Scripture that even God's own people perish for lack of knowledge, right? Well, that's really true. And, we can stick our heads in the sand and pretend that things, they're getting bad, but, at least we're not crashing and burning yet. But we really have to get out of the hammock, folks. We've got to, number one, be informed. And that's why you're here tonight. So I'm just going to give you a little background with MerryLynn. She's been Texas Eagle Forum's vice president for a good number of years, and then Texas Eagle Forum's education liaison for many years, many legislative sessions. And she actually moved to Austin to be able to just volunteer lobby for the conservative issues in education that we stand for. And so now she is the National Security Issues Chairman for the National Eagle Forum organization. And so her focus now has been on political Islam. Islam is not a religion. It's political activism. That's what it is. And MerryLynn has been a precinct chairman, election judge, delegate to the state and national conventions, and but significantly, she has also served on the state Republican Party platform committee twice, and that's like a whole week, or even longer than a week, of very hard work, helping to keep our platform strongly conservative. And she's won many awards, but I don't want to, I'm just going to say that in summing up, she lives in Parker County. Where is Parker County? It's up north, west of Fort Worth. West of Fort Worth. Okay, and her husband passed away, but she and Val were married for 43 years. They have a son and daughter and 5 grandchildren, and that's why MerryLynn does what she does. Would you come and share with us today?
Good evening, everyone. And thank you very much for your warm welcome and for your introduction, for inviting me Betty, and all my friends here at Montgomery County Eagle Forum. It's wonderful to be among fellow Eagles. It's so heartwarming and comforting to know that there are so many of you who know the uniqueness of our United States Constitution. So many of you who take the time to learn about the people and philosophies that threaten our American way of life. So many of you who are willing to take action when you learn the new facts about the threat to our beloved constitutional republic and our beloved home, known all over the world as Texas. Tonight, I've been asked to talk about political Islam, why the term political Islam, a review of some bills filed during the last legislative session, how Texas is being Islamized, the status of the Turkish-run Harmony charter schools, how to know how many mosques are in Texas, Sharia law courts, and a little more. My dad always said that I was vaccinated with a phonograph needle, and I don't know if that's anything to be proud about, but let me just say sometimes I put in too many details. To begin, I want to take you back to 1966 when I was living in New York City. My boyfriend was a naval aviator assigned to the USS Wasp, an aircraft carrier that went up and down the Atlantic seaboard looking for Russian submarines. That same year, a new movie hit the screen. It was titled, "The Russians Are Coming, the Russians Are Coming." This movie was a spoof about a Russian submarine that ran aground off the coast of Nantucket Island. The captain sent some sailors to the mainland to get some help, and word spread very quickly. And like the party game of telephone, the story changed from person to person. As panicked people said, "The Russians are coming, the Russians are coming." The movie was nominated for 4 Academy Awards. With that in mind, I want to take you now to this past winter when word spread in Texas that a Muslim community called Epic City was going to be built in Josephine, Texas, just 40 miles northeast of Dallas. To me, it was as if the people were saying, "The Muslims are coming, the Muslims are coming." However, it isn't a spoof, and truth be told, the Muslims are already here. Please know that as a Christian, I want all Muslims to know the saving grace of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I often think about Christian missionaries in faraway places telling people about Jesus, or Christians right here in the United States spreading the gospel. I don't know about you, but I was recently shocked when a Texas friend told me that they were recently at a doctor's office and stopped to pour themselves a cup of coffee for their ride home. A person in the waiting room approached them and asked if they were a Christian. When my friend replied yes, the person who had approached them immediately began to say that Christianity was all wrong and that Islam and their God Allah were all the true religion. This was a person in regular American dress. How bold and frightening. My wise friend smiled and went on their way out the door. I wonder how many other Muslims are trying to spread their message about their God, Allah. As you listen to my words tonight, I want you to keep in mind that my concern is not with the emotional aspect of Islam, such as the sweet Muslim colleague at work or your friendly Muslim neighbor. My concern is with the political aspect of Islam, what their doctrine commands them to do to the non-Muslim. In short, talk about the Quran, Muhammad, Allah, and their doctrine, not about Muslims. That's the emotional part. It's hard to know exactly how many Muslims are in the United States because the U.S. Census forbids questions about faith. The numbers vary greatly if you do an online search. However, the number of mosques in Texas provide a good picture of how many Muslims could be in our state. Right now, there are 312 mosques in Texas. That is up from 288 in 2023. Tarrant County has 25. Dallas County, 48. Collin County has 22. Denton County, 8. Harris County has 84 mosques. And Bexar County has 15. I know these numbers to be accurate as they were taken from the County Appraisal District websites throughout the state by a patient and meticulous research person, whom I happen to know and can verify. One of our 2 Muslim state representatives spoke from the floor of the Texas House this past regular session and stated that there are 500,000 Muslims in Texas. I have heard that it's closer to 400,000. All to say that it's difficult to get an accurate number. It's also difficult to determine how many Islamic private schools we have in Texas because some mosques have their own schools. If you do an online search, you will come up with a big variety of lists. You may have heard of the Vanguard Academy. I live in Parker County, just west of Fort Worth. The Vanguard Academy was in Arlington in Tarrant County. That private Islamic school closed during COVID, and to the best of my knowledge, has not reopened. I always thought it interesting that the name of the school was so benign sounding. Anyone driving down the street would never have guessed that a school named the Vanguard Academy was a private Islamic school. I also thought it interesting that the property was deeded to the North American Islamic Trust, or NAIT. If you're taking notes, write that down. N-A-I-T, North American Islamic Trust. Did you know that NAIT is the Bank of the Muslim Brotherhood? It was established by the Muslim Student Association, the first Islamic association formed in the United States of America. There are over 700 chapters of the Muslim Student Association throughout the United States and Canada. Chapters at public colleges, universities, high schools, and junior high schools. Also, you may be aware of the Harmony Charter Schools that were founded 25 years ago by Turkish men here in Texas. The Harmony Charter Schools now boast over 60, that's 60 campuses throughout Texas, and they enroll over 45,000 students. When I first started creating a public fuss about the Harmony Charter Schools way back in 2011, there were only about 32 campuses. A friend and I were unsuccessful in killing a bill that would have allowed charter schools to use the permanent school fund to guarantee school construction bonds to build new schools. The bill passed, and charter schools no longer had to purchase something like an old supermarket building or an old Walmart for the charter school. The Permanent School Fund, or PSF as it's called, funds textbooks and also backs up school districts that want to pass a bond to pass a new build a new school. The value of the Permanent School Fund is currently about $48.5 billion. Always remember that charter schools are public schools that are funded with taxpayer money. They must teach the same Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills that your public traditional public school teaches. They do have the option for the delivery of the curriculum. Note again the benign sounding name Harmony. Islamists like to use benign sounding names. For instance, there are about 150 Turkish-run charter schools throughout America. In Ohio, some are known as Horizon Charter Schools. In Oklahoma, they have the Dove Charter Schools. And in California, they have Magnolia Charter Schools. Now that Epic City has been under investigation by several government agencies, I am not one bit surprised that Epic announced about 2 weeks ago that they have renamed Epic City, quote, the Meadow, unquote. After I started giving speeches about the Harmony schools back in 2011, they changed their websites and quit posting photos of what they do at the schools. For several years, they emphasized Turkish culture and taught Turkish cooking, Turkish dance classes, and Turkish language at their schools. My question has always been, where will a student's loyalty lie? To the United States or to Turkey? I lived in Austin during the past legislative session in order to serve as a volunteer lobbyist for National Eagle Forum. A friend and I rented an apartment so that we could be in Austin every day at the Capitol. We'd go home to Fort Worth and Parker County to make sure our houses were still standing. Perhaps you know, actually my friend has a husband and a wonderful family at home. Perhaps you know that we have 2 state representatives who are from Pakistan and put their hands on the Quran when they took their oath of office in 2023 and again in 2025. Salman Bojani is an attorney from Euless, and Suleiman Lolani is a physician from Sugar Land. You may find this little book of interest. What's Wrong with Being Sworn In on the Quran by Robert Spencer. You may have heard about SB 10 by Senator Phil King that requires the 10 Commandments to be posted on the wall in every classroom in Texas. This bill has been signed by Governor Abbott. What I found most interesting was that Senator Sarah Eckhart, a Democrat from Austin, attempted to amend the bill by adding a clause that required the 5 pillars of Islam to be posted on classroom walls. Her argument was that there are so many Muslim students in Texas. In case you didn't know, the amendment read, and I quote, the 5 pillars of Islam. Shahada, to believe in no God but Allah and that Muhammad is his prophet and message of Allah. Salah, to pray 5 times each day. Swam, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing these. To give up food and drink during daylight hours during the month of Ramadan. Zakah, to give a share of personal wealth and help people in need. Hajj, to perform a pilgrimage to Makkah at least once in a lifetime, unquote. Thank goodness the amendment was voted down. There were 2 other amendments that were also voted down, one that would include the 7 core tenets of Hinduism, and another that included the 4 noble truths of Buddhism. There were also 2 bills that would have required a halal food option in public schools if a parent or student made that request. The bills never got a hearing. HB 1805 would establish a Religious Freedom Commission. The members would have included a spokesperson from the Muslim community. I testified against the bill, saying that a representative from CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, most likely would serve for the Muslim component of the commission. I provided the committee members with documentation showing that CARE was an unindicted co-conspirator in the 2008 Holy Land Foundation trial in Richardson, Texas. where 5 Muslims were sent to prison for sending $12.4 million to Hamas. The bill died in Texas. H.R. 45 failed to get out of committee. It recognized April 29 as Texas Muslim Capital Day. I think that would have been the 20th year that they had done it. I circulated a flyer stating why Kier should not be allowed to host Muslim Capital Day. HCR 18 is designated as Muslim Heritage Month for the next 10 years. This bill died in committee as it was never brought up for a public hearing. Note that the same bill was filed in 2023, where it died in committee. One of the worst bills was HCR 85, designating March 15 as the day to combat Islamophobia for the next 10 years. This is straight from the United Nations. This bill failed as the chairman never brought it up for a public hearing. We must be ever vigilant about Islamophobia. There are blasphemy laws in other countries. We have the First Amendment right to free speech, and we don't need someone telling us what we can't say just because it might offend a Muslim. The proverbial camel's nose is under the tent in Texas. We can be rest assured that Representatives Bojani and Lalani will continue to push their agenda on Texas. I wonder what they will think of in the future. For instance, Mr. Robert Spencer, author of 30 books and director of Jihad Watch, wrote this about Germany's national soccer team. They have banned pork for players in order to avoid offending Muslims. Note that there are many Turks in Germany. The German government welcomes Turkish migrants. They welcomed them years ago when they needed labor. Now there are more than 500,000 Turkish people living in Germany. Most of them live in Berlin. Well, let's get back to Texas. H.R. 37 commended Engage Texas Emerging Leaders programs. This bill passed the House, but many members registered voting no. Note that Engage is a liberal organization that works to register Muslims to vote. Engage worked hard in New York City to help get out the vote for Zohran Mamdani, the Muslim who was recently elected mayor of New York City. Mamdani is not only a Muslim, he's also a democratic socialist who has a laundry list of radical changes for New York City. He wants to defund the police, provide government-run grocery stores, and have rent control for more affordable living. As astute patriots, you must be wondering, why am I telling you that New York City just elected a communist as their mayor? But I found that a lot of people just don't keep up with the news. Maybe you brought a friend tonight that you want to bring up to speed, and I thank you for coming, and also for bringing your friend. Many are just making a living and raising their families. And that's one of the main reasons I've gone and lived in Austin for 12 different sessions, because the paid lobby is huge. And also most moms and dads are at home making a living and raising their families, and they don't have time to take and go and sit all day in a committee hearing. But I've been blessed that I've been able to do that. Well worth my time. And I thank Montgomery County Eagle Forum for rallying people to go down and weigh in on bills, or to write to their legislators or call them or make public comments on some bills that come up. And speaking of that election in New York City, CARE, again the Council on American Islamic Relations, donated $500,000 to Zohran Mamdani's campaign. And as many, or probably most of you know, our President Donald J. Trump has called Mr. Mamdani a communist, and I would agree. At the homepage of Engage, they boast, quote, "Our Million Muslim Votes campaign contributed to 1,086,087 of registered Muslim votes casting a ballot. Remember your precinct chair, your call for precinct chairs? I'm a precinct chair, I've been one for 21 years. You go to people's homes and you tell them, come and vote, and you inform them. And if you want, you can register voters as a precinct chair. The Rare Foundation recently reported that the Pew Research Center has found that Islam is the fastest growing religion in America. Not just in America, but in the world. Quote, between 2010 and 2020, the number of Muslims has increased by a staggering 347 million people, more than the combined growth of all other major religions, and nearly 3 times the growth of Christianity during the same period. This surge is fueled by high birth rates, a youth-dominated age structure, and mass migration, particularly into Western nations. According to earlier Pew projections, if current trends persist, Islam is on track to surpass Christianity as the world's largest religion by 2075, unquote. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's important to interject that Islam is actually not a religion, and Betty already mentioned that. This junior high textbook, it's also used in senior high schools, in many Islamic schools. I bought mine on Amazon. They also have a later edition, and that's back in my hotel room here in town. This is titled, What Islam is All About. Right on page 2, it states, and you can come and look at it later, Islam, quote, Islam is not a religion, however, but a complete way of life, unquote. That's what they're teaching their kids in private Islamic schools. Page 162 through 164 of the same book teach the 3 duties of Islam, number 3 being jihad. On page 164, it shows a sketch of a military tank in the book that I just showed you. The newer edition shows a photo of the rubble of a building. I suggest that you purchase a copy of this textbook so you can see for yourself what Muslim children are taught in the private Islamic schools. I also suggest you buy a copy of the book, The Reliance of the Traveler, a classic manual of Islamic sacred law. This is the Sharia law. A couple of things that you should know is that it is illegal in the Islamic system for a Muslim to teach another Muslim something that is not true about Islam. This is The Reliance of the Traveler. It's well indexed, and during last session and the previous session, when I was called to testify on some Islamic bills, I carried it up to the lectern, just so anyone watching online or any Muslim sitting in the room would know what I had. I bought this at Amazon also. It's a great thing to have. And have a new word for you to memorize. Kafir, K-A-F-I-R. That is the singular for a non-Muslim. In Islam, a kafir is the worst of all creatures. We're also known as infidels. And the plural, I believe, is kufar, K-U-F-A-R. There are some things that are key to remember. All Muslims on the planet have 2 things in common. And I tell you this because there are many sects within Islam, but all believe this, and that is their salvation prayer called the Shahada. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger/prophet. This past summer, I received an email announcing, coming soon, the Islamic Center of Parker County. A sign-up email was provided for interested parties. A property search at my local county CAD, County Appraisal District, provided no clues as to where this Islamic Center would be located. This got my attention because I've lived in Parker County for 42 years. We are situated just 15 minutes west of Tarrant County, home of Fort Worth. I did know that some Muslims had tried to buy an old church building in Willow Park, 2 towns over. The church was not on the market. Since then, I've been told by an elected official that Muslims have actually tried to buy 2 churches in Willow Park, but neither was on the market. I also know that a group called the Muslims United for Progress have owned property 15 miles north of the Parker County Courthouse and have paid taxes on it since 1985. When I first discovered this property in 2018, the Muslims United for Progress owned 3 contiguous pieces of property, 20 acres, 18 acres, and another 18 acres. Of course, this totaled 56 acres. And since then, they have sold 16 acres. I've always wondered what they plan to do with this property. I wonder if one day we will hear the Muslim call to prayer over loudspeakers in rural Parker County. One thing I do know for certain is that the newest Mali Center of Houston was inaugurated on November 6th by Mayor John Whitmire. John Whitmire is a former Democrat state senator. This new 150,000 square foot building sits on only 11 acres. It has a theater, banquet halls, a cafe, and a place for prayer. And they welcome any non-Muslim to come and enjoy themselves there on their property. Note that if you learn of a proposed mosque or Islamic center, I highly recommend another book to you. This is called Mosques in America. It was written by an attorney from Texas by the name of Karen Lugo. This is a guide to accountable permit hearings and continuing citizen oversight. From the back cover, it reads, quote, "This guide provides case studies and legal insight into local zoning processes along with suggested roles for residents who wish to engage in oversight." Once a mosque is built, it's built, but if you can be engaged in the building and zoning process, you might be able to have some effect on what's going on there. As we think about Muslims coming into our communities, remember that Muslims are commanded to pattern their lives after Muhammad, the perfect example of a human being, according to Islam. Anything that Muhammad said or did is permissible in Islam. Anything, down to a gnat's eyebrow. If you look in the reliance of the traveler under funerals, it's very interesting. In 2023, there was a bill that failed, but it was introduced that would require a hospital or medical facility to remove any tubes or whatever from a corpse before it was sent to a funeral home. And the reason being that Muslims do not want to have to remove those things from a body, like a catheter or feeding tube, an IV. Evidently, they leave hospitals in that condition. So that bill failed. So I was curious about it, and I looked at my reliance of the traveler, and I was surprised to find in the Sharia law that when Muslims prepare a body for burial, they cover it up and they have to reach underneath and do everything. They don't look at it. So what I'm saying, I'm telling you this because it's a good example of how whatever Muhammad did, they can do, or are to pattern their lives that way. So things down to a gnat's eyebrow are laid out in the reliance of the traveler in Sharia law. I highly recommend that you learn about Muhammad and the Hadith, what Muhammad said and did. And there are thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of Hadiths. Keep in mind that the word Islam means submit or submission. Remember, don't talk about the emotional aspect of Islam. Talk about the political doctrine of Islam, what Islam commands Muslims to do to the non-believer. During his first legislative session, Representative Bojani took selfies with as many House members as possible. He posted them on his Facebook page. One House member told me that this session, Mr. Bojani was constantly giving him little gifts throughout his past session. He was trying to make nice with him and be a friend with him. As I told you, Representative Bojani is from Euless. That's up near the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. A portion of the airport sits in Euless. 2 weeks ago, I flew into DFW Airport and headed for baggage claim. As I went through the door from the terminal to baggage claim, I saw a woman seated next to the door. There was a large sign next to her chair. It was about this big, in big letters. It said, "Security." She is posted there to keep passengers from entering the main terminal once they come to the baggage claim side. I thought you might like to know that she was wearing a hijab, the traditional female Muslim head covering. Just let that sink in. A woman wearing a hijab is acting as a sentinel to keep people from entering the secured part of the airport. Spend some time there at DFW and note the many women wearing hijabs as they clean the ladies' restrooms or work at a lost baggage claim counter. I picked up my luggage and headed for the parking lot shuttle bus. I've parked in the same parking lot at the airport for at least 14 years. Note that the bus drivers almost all have Muslim names. If I'm alone on the bus and the driver has a foreign accent, I always ask the driver about his homeland. Almost all of them tell me it is from some Islamic country that they will name. That night I got home from my trip. I was hungry, so I stopped at a Brahms at the first exit out of the airport. As I got out of my car, I noticed a halal food market across the street. Muslims are not required to eat halal food, but many of them make demands for it. And you'll remember the 2 bills that were filed that would have required a school district or charter school, which of course is a public school, to provide a halal food option if a student or their parent, a student or parent requested it. Jews will not eat halal food because of the inhumane ways that animals get slaughtered. However, Muslims will eat kosher food. DFW Airport also sits on part of the city of Irving. There are several mosques in Irving and several subdivisions that have streets with Islamic names. All to say that a major airport hub, there are many employees who are Muslims. Walk through DFW and note how many women walking around who are working there have their heads covered in hijabs. Another bill this session was H.R. 45. It failed to get out of committee. It recognized April 29, 2025 as Texas Muslim Capital Day. I circulated a flyer that stated why CARE should not be allowed to host Muslim Capital Day. And also note that CARE has chapters in about 20 other states. And if you go to their individual websites and do a search for Muslim Capital Day or Muslim Day at the Capitol, they all do that in other states during legislative sessions. Note that I hand carried a copy of this flyer to the office of every Republican member of the House and the Senate. I had also called Bud Kennedy, a longtime reporter for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and told him about my flyer. I asked him if he wanted a copy, and he said, yes, please email it to me. Of course, I never heard back from him. Note that the Capitol grounds are under the purview of the State Preservation Board. The board is the entity that grants permission for groups to use the Capitol grounds facilities for rallies, for meetings. If your Chamber of Commerce were going down there and wanted to have a day at the Capitol or a rally on the Capitol steps, they would go through the State Preservation Board. Note that the governor and the lieutenant governor are among those who sit on the State Preservation Board. One of the worst bills this past session, well, I told you about Islamophobia, and I have to skip 1 second here. I want to turn now to a topic that a friend called fighting legislative ignorance. As one who has moved to Austin for 12 legislative sessions to serve as a full-time volunteer lobbyist, I always keep in mind a little book I read many years ago that was written by former California State Senator, the late Bill Richardson. He also founded Gun Owners of California. This little book is entitled, quote, "What Makes You Think We Read the Bills?" unquote. And I have to give it to our staff at our Capitol because they read the bills. And they are amazing people that do this. This book could have been written about Texas. You see, my experience has been that legislators don't have time to read all the bills. Staff often knows more about the bills than their boss. And I think that you have someone here this evening who could have learned that for me. And citizens often tell legislators about the good stuff or the bad in a bill. One big problem here in Texas is that the House session will be presented with a laundry list of resolutions. It's called the Memorial and Resolutions Calendar. The Speaker of the House will take one vote for the entire list. After the vote is taken, some members will go up to the House clerk and register a no vote on the bill or bills they oppose. This will be recorded in the House Journal. Real-life examples of this are in a handout I'm going to give you in a few minutes. We're extremely blessed by the freshman representatives who often voted as a block this past session, and some other very conservative, a handful of conservative state reps who have voted along with them. What I found most interesting was that one of my flyers may have changed the minds of more than several moderate Republicans, or Republicans in name only, that we call rhinos. This flyer was designed against H.R. 37, commending MGage's Emerging Leaders program that I talked about a little while ago. The purpose of MGage is to register Muslims to vote. My flyer cited some resources recommended by MGage. These included a reference to radical Muslim Linda Sarsour and a reference to Malcolm X. And I got that information from the MGage website. Now it takes me 3.5 hours at least to hand deliver a flyer to the office of every single Republican House member. It was after office hours the day I walked, so I didn't mind slipping flyers under locked office doors. I knew that the first person in the office the next morning would have to step over my flyer upon opening the door. This was the only flyer I circulated on a specific bill. And to see that the House Journal reflected almost double the number of those registering no on a bill led me to believe that this extra effort was well worth my time to prepare a flyer and walk the halls of the Capitol the night before a vote. I've been telling people about the threat Islam poses for many years. By the end of the past session, one legislator whom I had told about Islam 7 years ago said to me, "MerryLynn, you were ahead of your time." Truth be told, I heard about Islam from several experts over 20 years ago. But I was afraid to tell others that Muslims can lie, that Muhammad married his wife Aisha when she was 6 years old and consummated their marriage when she was 9 years old, because I just didn't think that people would believe me. It was just so amazing. Plus, I didn't know where to go to verify that. But since then, I have found some excellent resources that substantiate my claims, and so I feel confident going and talking about those things. And I hope that I've given you some resources tonight that will help you tell others about Islam. During the 2023 session, I had entered an office of a friendly legislator and found a longtime, very conservative friend working there. I began to speak about some bills related to Islam and was shocked that this old friend got very defensive and told me how many nice Muslims are in their district. They almost kicked me out the door. However, perhaps it was the election of the Muslim Democrat Socialist Zoran Mamdani to the office of Mayor of New York City that finally got the attention of Governor Greg Abbott. Suddenly, out of the blue, he designated the Muslim Brotherhood and CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, foreign terrorist organizations. Then, just a couple of weeks ago, Governor Abbott called for an investigation into what have been called Islamic tribunals in Collin and Dallas counties. These tribunals are not new. If you Google them, you can find that they've been around for years. Governor Abbott's letter begins with, and I quote, "It has come to my attention that certain entities in Texas, including Collin and Dallas counties, may be masquerading as legal courts, staffed with judges issuing orders that purportedly carry the authority to bind individuals to Islamic codes, thereby preempting state and federal laws. Such practices appear to cross the line from permissible internal religious decision-making to violation of state criminal laws," unquote. The governor went on to write, quote, "I urge you, therefore, to investigate efforts by entities purporting to illegally enforce Sharia law in Texas," unquote. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my hope and prayer that Governor Abbott will follow through on these new efforts to flush out and tie the hands of those who want to impose Islam upon us. To me, one confirmation that the governor is serious, if the governor is serious, would be if he bans Muslim Capital Day, which is sponsored by CARE, come next legislative session in 2027. Governor Abbott serves, as I told you, on the State Preservation Board that would give permission for CARE to host Muslim Capital Day. My prayer is that Americans are waking up to the threat of Islam. We must remind people of our founding documents and speak truth boldly. As I draw to a close, I want to go back to where I began. I mentioned my boyfriend, who was a naval aviator. Well, after 3 years, he finally married me. We were married for 43 years before he died. After I became involved in politics in 1993, I often came home from town after having a conversation with someone about a favorite political soapbox of mine. And the way I got involved with politics in 1993 was different from Betty's. I was on a long-range goal planning committee for my school district. I was one of 20 parents. And I read every single piece of literature that we were given. And we met for 6 months. I was the only member who attended every single meeting. Red flags went up when I read their propaganda. And I asked to discuss that with our committee, and I was told, yes, the next week. The next week came, and I was told, oh, we can discuss it next week. And then the next week came, and I was told, we can discuss it in my office. Well, I threw a temper tantrum. I didn't realize that I was a part of the consensus process, also known as the Alinsky method or the Delphi method, where a trained facilitator takes a diverse group of people and leads them to a predetermined outcome. It is designed to flush out the opposition. That was me. You are not allowed to have open discussion. You never take an up or down vote. You come to consensus on everything. So it is designed to flush out the enemy. Well, I got very angry, and I said, I will tell everyone I know. Well, here I am tonight.
Yes.
So, but I didn't know that it is designed to flush out the opposition so that no one in the group wants to be near this person who is flipping their lid and being very irrational. So they gravitate to the facilitator, who is highly trained, and they have them eating out of the palm of their hand. So this is done in the military, it's done in government, it's done in medicine, and it is highly effective. No one wants to be associated with a person who's throwing a temper tantrum. So they will go to the facilitator, and then they will take the product that they have designed, maybe a school bond election, or maybe a new sex ed program. And then those nice members of that committee will go out and sell the idea to the public. Oh, gee, that school bond issue, one of the members of that committee was my kid's Sunday school teacher or my kid's soccer coach. And so, yeah, if they were on that committee, I'll vote for it. So that's how the Delphi process works. The reason I was opposed, they wanted to go from teaching academic, factual knowledge to affective education, attitudes, values, and beliefs. It was going on all over the country. And guess what we have? Look at what we have, a bunch of Marxists who've gone through the public school system. Look what we have. It was highly effective. So I told you that I would make packets for people. And I would take them to people I had met in town and give them a packet on the soapbox of the day. And I would happily deliver the packet to my friend. My husband had a great sense of humor. He often said that I was saving the world one packet at a time. That said, tonight I have prepared a packet for all of you. It contains a list of the bills related to Islam and their final outcome. There is also a copy of a flyer stating why CARE should not be allowed to secure the facilities of the state capitol grounds for Muslim Capital Day. It's the same one that I took to all the legislators that I mentioned. I thank you again. Oh, and it also contains a list of resources that I've referenced and even more, some websites that you can go to equip yourself to fight this huge battle. I want to thank you again for coming tonight, and I would like to leave you with these words spoken by President Ronald Reagan in his televised speech titled, quote, "A Time for Choosing," unquote, on October 27, 1974. Quote, "You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We will preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we will sentence them to take the first step into 1,000 years of darkness. If we fail, at least let our children and our children's children say of us, we justified our brief moment here. We did all that could be done. Unquote, and thank you.
Different mosques are located in various towns or counties. How many are in Montgomery County?
I didn't check that. I'm sorry. I should have. I have it in a database. So if you contact me, I can tell you later.
How do we look that up?
Pardon me?
How do we look that up?
Someone has asked, how do we look up if there's a mosque? What you do is you go to your county appraisal district, your CAD, and do a property search. Use these words: Muslim, mosque, Islam, Islamic Center, NAIT, N-A-I-T, or the North American Islamic Trust. And that's a good way to find them.
Mary,
Go ahead.
yeah. MerryLynn, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
In your opinion, what is the most effective thing all of us can do to take action to resist what's happening to our country?
Remember the things I said tonight. Talk about political Islam. Avoid the emotional part. On my list of resources, I have the Center for the Study of Political Islam website. If you go there, Dr. Bill Warner has an outstanding user-friendly website. He also has some very small books. He wrote them so they're easy to read. He's a retired mathematics professor, and he provides excellent ways to fight political Islam. That's where I would go, is to the Center for the Study of Political Islam. You're welcome.
Oh, I want to thank you for coming too. But one thing that we should keep in mind is every Muslim man has made at least one, maybe 2, 3 wives. And they have 3 or 4 kids, 5 kids by each one. How long do you think that'll take before they completely overrun us as people?
I have no idea. I will say that Islam is the fastest spreading religion in prisons.
Yeah, if you have 5 or 6 kids by 2 women or 3, I guess it would be if you part from birth.
Yes. But I really can't give you a specific number or date.
Hey, go to the mic. Go ahead.
I had a question. I have actually interacted with younger people that are Muslim, that are conservative. How would you suggest we overcome this issue if they want to be a part of our party?
Every Muslim believes in their shahada, and a lot of Muslims may not want. Muslims kill Muslims all over the world. They kill their own because they call them apostates. They kill homosexuals. If someone leaves Islam, they kill them. They will kill them if so desired. There are honor killings, a lot of honor killings. So a lot of Muslims don't want to live that way. So, but you can. But the thing is that I've been told and learned that a lot of Muslims don't even know what their Quran says. A lot of them do not know it. And when people are converted to Islam, those proselytize them don't tell them all the bad stuff. And it's later on where they show them what they are commanded to do.
These bills that you were talking about, who's sponsoring these bills? Any Republicans, or where's the sponsorship coming?
You'd have to look at the Texas legislature online. Is one of the best uses of our taxpayer dollars I can think of. It's very user-friendly, and you can look up a bill there, and you can see who sponsored a bill, who co-sponsored a bill, and you can get all of that information right there. And in my handout is a list of the bills that were introduced this session relating to Islam, and so you can go to Texas legislature online and just punch in the bill number, and you can find the the bill history, who authored, who co-authored the bill, and how they voted on it.
I think the bills you mentioned, though, were Democrats. So
I'm sorry?
I think the bills you mentioned were Democrats and not Republicans.
Some had some co-sponsors.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, they did.
Yeah,
Who's
thank
that?
you. Sorry, thank you for being here and this is very good. And my question or comment is, as a Christian, I think the biggest issue today is Christians have lost conviction. I grew up in a Muslim community.
Say again.
I grew up in a place with a lot of Muslims. And the biggest problem then, which is still now, is Christians are too comfortable. We are so used to, we don't go sharing our conviction. Europe, for instance, they forgot about Christianity. They just became used to what they had, which is what's happening in America, unfortunately. The church has lost its way. And the only way we can fight back against Islam is not politics. It's the church, this room, getting back to God. Then we'll defeat Islam. Thank you.
Yes, MerryLynn, you might have heard about this, but several years ago, maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, I think it was in the Denton area, the county party chairman appointed a Muslim man to be the vice chair, I believe it was, and the CAC was very upset about it. Some of them were. They were very concerned. And so they had a big vote one night, but these people who were concerned were demonized as racist. It was awful, the way they were treated. And anyway, I think that man, I don't know, it really concerned me a lot. And I think that man was just using as a stair step to a higher office, because after that I would see him all over the state with elected officials everywhere on stage and there and all this. And I just, I didn't know if you remembered that incident, but I just think we need to be very careful at vetting people and putting people in leadership positions.
That happened in
Last question.
South Lake. That happened in South Lake.
Yeah.
And it was very, very concerning to everyone. And yes, we have to be concerned.
I find Islamic terrorists in 4 different countries, and there's a pattern. They are obligated. There's no moderate Muslims. They are obligated by the Quran to lie against the infidels. They may infiltrate. There is a pattern to every country that you'll see in Europe, every Western country. They come in really nice and quiet. They start building communities. They start doing things, and when you push back, they're going to throw the Islamophobe label in your face. They're going to use lawfare against us. You give them the inch, they're going to take them out. We should adopt Japan's immigration policy. Yes, forget illegal immigration. That's definitely a hard no for me. But we should only allow countries that come in, not because of the color of your skin, but if your culture is compatible with our Judeo-Christian culture. That's what we need to fix.
So we have one more question. Close it up.
I've got an announcement here. I just looked on my cell phone, looked up mosques in Montgomery County, Texas, and it looks to me, I hope I'm wrong, but it looks like there is a dot in Carriage Hills, on the west side of Carriage Hills, if you take Highway 242 up to 1488, and you can't cross over 1488. But if you're a crow flying just north of there, a few blocks, evidently there's a mosque there.
He's actually just west of there.
Just west of Carriage Hills.
There's a mosque, it's just west of my neighborhood, which is next to Carriage Hills. So it's just west of, it's a little bit further west.
Okay.
42.
There's
Anyway.
a mosque on Sawdust Road, right down from Grogan's Mill, right where that bend is in the road. Right there's a mosque. It's been there a long time.
There's also one back behind Kamina. There's several.
Well, I think we're pretty, we need, I'd like to see some pinpoints, just so that I know where they are. And I'm sure there are a lot of neighbors.
Are the taxpayers helping fund the charter schools that these the Muslims are opening?
All charter schools are taxpayer funded.
So we're actually funding their
Correct.
culture here.
Correct. They can accept private donations, but they're primarily funded by taxpayer money.
Yeah, I also heard that Texas was like a target for them to take the state.